Well, you're looking at a rare collection of quakes north of the British Isles. The reason I'm showing you this happened a year or two ago, but people had questions about the transition zone earthquakes. What happens when you drain your major 10-kilometer deep magma chambers and they come up to the 4-kilometer, 2-kilometer depth? When you empty out those deeper chambers, the chambers can subside and collapse. Many volcanoes, when they give off and erupt, the crater sinks. Well, if we have subsidence going on in deep underwater magma chambers, then the place that gets the most stress is where the floor slopes up to meet the vertical. And in this diagram, in this map, you see the light blue and the darker blue. That's where the deeper water slopes up to meet the shallower water. So it leaves a shotgun pattern as opposed to a pattern that transcends or follows along a trench or a fault line. So these would be volcanic earthquakes. A lot of them 10 kilometers depth. And then a few years ago, this instrument, because we were showing you this, the aperture was darkened so you can't see this flashing. This is 160 nanometer ultraviolet, extreme ultraviolet. People are measuring extreme ultraviolet with their own instruments in their backyards. Yet NOAA and NASA says extreme ultraviolet doesn't make it to the ground. But this flashing, as you see running through your screen, this is just as I zoomed in on a piece of the solar corona. I do believe the sun is off to the right. But you also see patches of green in with these flashing lights. That too can be considered additional 160 nanometer radiation. And when you have these come through in waves, that pretty much tells you why the sun is white hot now instead of yellow, why the leaves are burning on your trees, especially broadleaf trees, why the temperature of your car dashboard is 197 in February, why the concrete is 145 degrees on the asphalt when it's only 80 degrees outside. So there's particles racing through the corona of the sun, lighting up the corona. And we studied this for a year, trying to figure out why the sun was hotter. We thought it was increased fusion of helium, but we were wrong. It was these particles lighting up the corona. And other science articles have indicated we were right. Now, many people keep telling you that Planet X is a conspiracy theory. Planet X is a joke. Nibiru doesn't exist. But here are actual scientific articles. We've posted dozens of these where people are exploring where Planet X is. You can hit pause and read some of this. Some of this is very technical, just depends on which article we're on. But they have narrowly confined a spatial region for plotting X and the boundaries that confine it. It shows significant departures in the orbit from a spherical symmetry, which means elongated symmetry. They found, by calculating all the planetary physics, that a Mars-sized body can be found not less than 70 to 85 AU from Earth and from the inner solar system, where this object has to reside 90% of the time. For a larger object, as large as Earth, then 147 to 175 AU. For even larger, I do believe Jupiter, 1006 to 1,200 AU. A brown dwarf, red dwarf, they give you all those distances of where this thing would be spending the majority of its time. Here's another one. Recent analysis have shown distant orbits within the scattered disk population of the Kuiper Belt exhibit an unexpected clustering in their respective arguments of perihelion. Meaning they all cross the same point when they reach the closest part of the sun. And so they're telling you there's a 0.007% chance that that's happened by accident. Here's another one, attributing the nemesis to an interval of 26 million year major extinctions. Now, I think this article can be disinformation because we have minor extinctions at 10 and 20,000 years. So, and they're periodic and they're cyclical. So when you focus on a 26 million year mass extinction, you're getting very subjective. What do you consider a mass extinction? At what point does your minor extinction become a mass extinction? And so we have periodic extinctions, but they ignored the thousands of them and focus in on a 26 million year orbit of planet X. But anyways, we pointed out that you could have several orbits, and it takes several passages to create an extinction. You have to keep melting the ice, We talked about comet showers that have been catalyzed by a distant solar companion. Nemesis is discussed. The evidence for periodic extinction in the paleological records exists. And so they say it's in the Oort cloud. I say it goes out to the Oort cloud as its maximum point, and it has to cross the Kuiper Belt twice. Once coming, once going, passes through the asteroid belt once, because that's where its perihelion is. So, but it passes over and under the asteroid belt, coming and going. So it crosses the asteroid belt when it reaches perihelion, comes up over the top, and then on the other side of the solar system has to pass over the same belt. But they're giving you confined statistics and confined data on where this thing can be. And notice it says the evidence of the very last line, evidence of putative companion may have been recorded by the Weiss Sky Survey, and that's the sky survey used by Astro Traveler to show that there was a massive infrared object in the constellation Aquarius. And then a year and a half later, NASA has this big press conference about the TRAPPIST system, a big, massive infrared emitting object with several habitable planets. So Planet 9, Planet X is documented over and over in about 90 different scientific articles. So it's not us, and it's not some crazy YouTuber that comes up with the name Planet X. And a lot of us call it Object X, and some of us call it Planet 9X. Now, there's questions recently about strange noises coming from the sky, trumpets coming from the sky. Well, I just want to share with you that a magnetosphere oscillations may be creating that phenomenon. And every time we see a video, we get the time of that video, the time it was recorded, the date is the important part. And we go back to the magnetosphere data to see if there were oscillations in the magnetosphere. And the oscillations have to be consistently harmonic. It has to be repetitive. You can't have a big oscillation followed by a little oscillation. It has to be vibrating like a string on a guitar. And so we went back We looked at the magnetosphere data, and indeed the last trumpets from the skies videos were taken during a brief period of repetitive oscillations of the magnetosphere. Well, why hasn't this happened before? Remember, when waves cross each other's paths, they leave a pattern. They leave a harmonic pattern, a symmetrical pattern. So right now, Planet X's wind is coming in 90 degrees to Earth, where the sun's wind is intersecting it. And so we have the intersection of both winds happening near our magnetosphere, thereby setting up a rippling effect. Now, the cosmic rays are our enemy. The cosmic rays, people are sick of hearing me talk about it, but I have to keep proving that we have to protect ourselves, that we know what's going on, that you should know what's going on by now, and that a lot of radiation coming from the sky. And we've gotten over the years thousands of emails from grateful people who have said they've taken precautions from these x-rays and their health issues got better. Their cardiac arrhythmias got better. They were easier to manage. Their mood behaviors were better. Their sleep cycles were better. Their migraines were better. Their chronic fatigue was better. All of those are symptoms. Their appetite's better. All of those are symptoms of radiation exposure. So we look at the stratospheric radiation. We send balloons up into the stratosphere, and they're measuring energetic radioactive particles. Those radioactive particles being measured are not the primary particle that is emitted from the brown dwarf, or in this case, a brown dwarf fragment. These particles being measured are the result of collisions that happen in our magnetosphere and release secondary particles that happen. You get those when you split an atom. You crack open an atom and all the particles in the nucleus go flying away. Some of them annihilate. When a positron meets an electron, they annihilate, producing intense gamma radiation. Neutrons come flying out. They aren't attracted to anything because they're neutral. And they decay rapidly, and when you have rapid decay, you have a release of radiation. So we see a steady increase of these energetic secondary particles, and so far we haven't seen them decrease. If you know of a recent decrease in stratospheric radiation from this instrument, there's one in California, one I believe in Norway. If you see and get an updated version of this, please send it to me. Attach it below. But Finland is actually where they conduct some of these stratospheric measurements. And finally, people talk about depopulation, and I used to think depopulation was a crackpot thing. Now, who would want to do that? These people are so bent on making money off of us that they don't want to decrease their market. They don't want to decrease the number of people buying their products. However, when it comes to power and control, too many people can be a hindrance. This picture, many of you know what this is about. This picture is a family portrait. A family portrait. And each and every one of these guys in this family portrait, each and every single one of them, is in fact a relative of each other. And they were monarchs presiding over. These are kings and dukes and bishops, archbishops, right? Presiding over countries in Europe. And yet Every single one, even Russia, Tsar Nicholas, is a relative of the Duke or the Archbishop of Austria. And remember, it was the assassination of his brother that caused World War I. In World War I, each and every one of these guys' country were at war with each other. So, if you don't believe in depopulation, burn this picture into your brain. Because this war, after the Spanish flu and after all the casualties, resulted in 60 million deaths. And over half were non-combatants. 60 million deaths. Spanish flu, the war, and civilian casualties. 60 million. So what does your planet look like in 5 years when 60 million people vanish off your Earth? Well, there's a lot less competition for food. That's what happens. And a lot fewer people left to overthrow your monarchy. Now, a couple of these guys died after the war. One of them was assassinated. Tsar Nicholas, I believe. One of them, I believe, sought asylum. But they're all relatives. And these guys, right in front of you, created a war. Just these 9 people created a war that killed 60 million people. So put that in your conspiracy pipe and smoke it. Until next time, be prepared, not scared.